Okay, here we are, topic 3, unit 9, the home front. We're going to be focusing in on how World War II impacted the United States at home. Right? Now, before you even start looking at all this stuff, I want to just clarify one thing. Right? In a war, when we talk about what the word front means, we mean place or location. Right? So we're going to have the Eastern Front or the Pacific Front, the Western Front or the European Front, right? So that would be like the battle front, right? We're talking about the home front. So what's going on at home? So this graph is showing us how World War II impacted the economy. So we know that prior to World War II, all throughout the 30s, was the Great Depression, right? So if we're looking, Great Depression, there's the stock market crash. Great Depression goes right up until, pretty much all throughout the 1930s, right? So when World War I starts in 1939, remember this is our unemployment graph, what do you see starts happening to the unemployment rate? It starts to come down, which means factories are starting to open, right? Because we are now making war materials, right? And the government's going to need them for the war, right? So there's an increased demand. People are buying, the government's buying the tanks, the airplanes, the guns, the bullets. So factories are going to be kicked into high gear. People are going to start getting jobs back. The government sets up the War Production Board to coordinate the economy, make sure that the economy can keep up with the demand of war. Right? Biggest part of this topic is definitely the role women play. Right? This probably one of the most important things we're going to discuss in this chapter. Right? The idea of women helping the war at home. So this is a very famous picture of Rosie the Riveter, right? It's also the same poster we have here in class. But the idea is that women can still contribute to the workforce by going and working in factories, the jobs that are now available because the men are fighting in the war, right? So you can see a lot of different posters here trying to, it would definitely be forms of propaganda, getting you to think a certain way, right? Meant to try and inspire women to contribute, all right? How else could people contribute? All right, one way was by purchasing war bonds, get a different color, which was simply a loan of money to the government. Right now, I'm going to put my math hat in here. Mrs. Love would definitely be proud. Right, if you bought a $50 bond, right, from the United States government, and say you held on to it for the full life of the bond, which would be, could be 10 years, could be 20 years. Okay, I'm just going to throw imaginary numbers out there, right? You can sell that bond for $100. The government will buy it back to you. So it's kind of like you're going to give the government money now in the form of a bond, and then later on you can sell your bond and make some money out of it, right? Another way government tried to influence the American people was through the use of propaganda. And we know that that is any kind of media to persuade people or get people to feel or think a certain way. So if you look at all these different posters here, let's focus in on this poster first. All right, you see 3 children. All right, obviously here's the American flag. It's playing with a with an airplane. Right, and then what's in the shadow? Let's move this out of the way. It says, "Don't let the shadow touch them. Buy war bonds." And you can see the swastika, the Nazi symbol, in the background. So the whole idea here was to inspire people or motivate people to purchase these war bonds, right, to keep the Nazis or keep the enemy from attacking and invading the United States. Right? Here's another good one up here. Right? He can't fix guns in the air. Build them right. Keep them firing. Right? To once again try and get people to work hard because our soldiers need it, right? And obviously that's still, the idea is still around today to do things for the soldiers. Right? How else could people, all right, carpools, that's easy, all right? Where is it? There it is, right? When you ride alone, you ride with Hitler. Obviously that's not really what you're doing, right? But the idea is to save gasoline. All 3 of these are going to be meant to save resources because the more we can save at home, the more soldiers have. Right? Rationing, right, is when you only have a certain amount of something. Right? So the government actually issued ration cards like this. Right? It also comes back in the 70s with gas. Right? Where you're only allowed to purchase, like you can maybe only buy bread on Mondays. Right? Or you can only buy X amount of gallons of gasoline. Right? Victory gardens here. Right? Grow your own stuff. If we can grow vegetables, right, then that's more that can get sent to the troops because we don't have to buy it from the store. And then conservation, right? That is saving or limiting the amount of things that you use. So you can see this picture here of this family that started canning, right? Putting their food that they've grown into safe mason jars to have later on. The idea, once again, is to just limit the amount of resources we use, because the less we use, the more we can send to our soldiers. Right? And then the last part, we're kind of switching gears a little bit, right? But this is kind of getting into the social impact of the war, right? And that was the internment, of Japanese Americans, right? So February 1942, this is roughly 2 months after Pearl Harbor, right? Which we know was a surprise attack from the Japanese. Right, the U.S. government is going to issue Order 9066, which takes 110,000 people, and not just random people of Japanese American ancestry, right, who are living on the West Coast, and it forces them to relocate to internment camps, which would be down here, right, further inland. The idea was that they were worried about sabotage or spying. Right, and obviously, most of these people were American citizens and had nothing to do with Pearl Harbor. But once again, that fear, that prejudice, it's a time of emergency. The Supreme Court upheld it, saying that it was a military necessity, it was a national emergency. Right, but once again, very sad point in American history, which we will examine in more detail. All right.